This is the meeting of the panel on constitutional affairs. Item 1 on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. We only received 2 papers. Ms. Emily LAU's letter to me, the panel chairman. There are 2 letters from her. If we are to handle them, we'll handle them in a moment. Items for discussion at the next meeting. Please invite the Bureau Director and his team to come in. Well, I saw some hands. You'd like to ask questions? That will be for the next item. This item is on items for discussion at the next meeting. We'd like to welcome Mr. Raymond Tam, Secretary for Constitution and Mainland Affairs, Ms. Chan King-yu, Permanent Secretary, Mr. Lau Kong-wah, Under Secretary, Mr. Gordon Leung, Deputy Secretary, and Ms. Charmaine Lee, Deputy Secretary. Our next meeting will be held on the 17th of February at 2:30 p.m. You'd like to discuss 3 issues with us? Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. We propose 2 discussion items for the next meeting. One is about fee adjustments under our Bureau. In his budget speech last year, the Financial Secretary said that each Bureau and department should systematically, on government fees and charges, conduct a review. We've reviewed CAP 268 with its 11 fees and charges and have proposed appropriate adjustments. And then CAP 554 is about the fees for photocopying of declarations. The fees have not been adjusted for many years. We've to propose that the fees be adjusted to put them on a par with other government fees and charges. We'll have a detailed explanation to members of the next meeting. The next proposed item is about the 3rd report submitted to the United Nations under ICCPR. According to the notice from the UN, on the 28th of April and to the 23rd of May, during that period, in Geneva, Switzerland, the SARG will have to submit a report under the ICCPR. That will be the 3rd report, and vetting will take place during that period. So we propose to discuss that item at the next meeting. In accordance with past practice, when the SARG was to submit a report under ICCPR, we would have to listen to public views. So if there's no objection from members, we'll listen to public views at that meeting. One of Ms. Emily LAU's letters was on that topic. Ms. Emily LAU, any supplement? Yes, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't matter. I believe the Bureau Director does not know when the hearing on China and Hong Kong will be conducted, probably in May. So February would be a bit too early, but I believe a number of panels are already ready. So, Mr. Chairman, would you please accord members of the public and deputations enough time to speak? Should I continue? Well, the Secretariat will issue a notice to invite deputations to come. Depending on the number of deputations signing up, we'll decide whether or not our meeting has to be extended, and if so, by how much. Ms. Emily LAU? My other letter was also passed to the Secretary. That's about regularizing the report of the CE to the CPG. We understand that all along the CE never told the LegCo what was included in past reports. So as a Beijing official had said that, we would like to know when that would be put on our agenda. he was told to do this, so he must know what's to be done. So he should give us a detailed explanation how this new request differed from past requests. And the explanation should cover this. And you have to explain to members of the public and the LegCo what the CE reported to the CPG. Secretary, what's this? Mr. Chairman, in relation to the CE's report to the state leaders, that's of course something for the CE's office to make arrangements. I'll pass members' messages to them. Letters were written to the CE office to put up inquiries. Last month, that is on the 23rd of December 2013, the private secretary, the personal secretary of the CE already sent a reply letter to the LegCo members to detail the arrangements for the report. I wonder whether those letters could be referred to members for reference. I believe Ms. Emily LAU's question has already been covered by the CE's office reply. Ms. Emily LAU, well, I don't object to any letters from them, but when I face the paper doesn't know how to answer my questions. So can we put this on our, say, March agenda? Mr. Tam, apart from the paper, what else can you supplement? Mr. Chairman, of course I will relay members' requests to the CE office. As I mentioned, the arrangements concerned were actually processed by that office. Of course, I noticed that in the reply from the personal secretary of the CE, mention is made of the constitutional arrangements. So I've nothing special to supplement in terms of contents. I'll relay members' views to the CE office. Apparently, this is not under the ambit of Mr. Raymond Tan. His to relay members' views to the CE's office only. No, Mr. Chairman, we should put this on our March agenda and let the relevant officials attend our meeting. But our corresponding bureau is the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau, and the bureau director has already said that he would pass members' views to the CE's office. So, members, any objection to putting this on our March agenda? Ms. Sito, I of course support that. By rationalization, we have to make sure that everything is systematic. We cannot have Mr. or Professor Casey Chan for this time and then Mr. Gregory So for another time. We must understand what this regularization means. I wonder whether the reply letter from the CE's office has dwelt on this point. They are ever changing. So we have to put this on our agenda. Dr. Kenneth Chan, after the CE went to Beijing last time, I wrote to the CE's office to ask them for an explanation. If the executive respects the legislature before and after the visit, there should be an exchange with the legislature. He's not going to listen to us. He said there's the policy address, the question and answer session, etc. Well, sorry, I was digressing. I asked how this regularization program could improve the executive-legislature relationship. So I agree with Ms. Emily LAU and Ms. Sito that since this is a platform on constitutional affairs, we should put this on our agenda so that members can express their views. Even if Mr. Tam is to serve as a messenger only, I'd like him to relay this message to the CE's office. Well, during the CE's question and answer session, you had a chance to ask questions. Well, Mr. Chairman, this is not related to the policy address. It's about regularizing the CE's report to the state leaders. Well, it doesn't matter even if you digressed. Mr. Ip got him. Mr. Chairman, I heard that members would like to discuss this regularization program. for the CE's report to the state leaders. We haven't yet read the reply letter from the CE's office. So, Mr. Tam, Secretary, if we are to discuss this issue in this panel, will this be under your ambit? We have to clarify this. If this is not under your bureau, under which bureau is this matter? Members would like to have a discussion. Mr. Lee Chia-yan, Mr. Chairman, there's no reason for you to intervene with Dr. Kenneth Chan's questions. You're not the chairman of the Civic Party, and you shouldn't intervene either. Well, you shouldn't intervene into members' questions. You asked why he didn't ask questions during the Q&A session. Well, there are so many things to ask about. Mr. Chairman, in the main, I'd like to go back to regularization or formalization. I think report to the LegCo should also be a formal part of the program as well. So will explanation to the LegCo be included as well? Well, Dr. Fernando Chang, you raised your hand immediately upon entering the room. Are you on this topic? No, on policy address. Any other comments? Mr. Wong Kok-in. Mr. Chairman, I believe that this is a question more appropriate for the CE. Mr. Tam cannot answer the question, so it's really meaningless.
Should it be incorporated into our agenda? I think you should decide it. And should the CE give an account to us on what he said during his duty visit? Well, I think the policy address is already an account. His coming to the question session in LegCo is already an account. That's my understanding. If some other people are of the view that those are not accounts, he should come to give us another account. Then we should ask the CE whether he's willing to do that. And Chairman, you should also decide on whether this should be dealt with in this panel. Any other comments? Secretary, you have heard many opinions. Some members have questions that they would like to ask about regularization. So can you relay all these questions back? You can discuss with the CE's office and give me a reply, and then I will notify members, okay? Okay, we have fixed the items for discussion at the next meeting. Agenda item 3, briefing on the Chief Executive's 2014 policy address. The Secretary has given us a paper, LC paper number CB-26988/1314-03. Secretary, before you take questions, I believe you would like to say a few words, right? And then I guess many members have raised questions, so we should allow more time for them to ask questions. Secretary, thank you, Chairman. We have already provided a relevant paper for members, and the details are already in the policy address and the policy agenda. So I would only highlight a few salient points. In relation to constitutional development, after the announcement of the policy address, many members asked the CE about constitutional development. As the CE said in the question and answer session, we will try our best to make sure that there will be 2017 universal suffrage for the CE election. We will try our best to build a consensus. Now we are in the midst of the consultation process. We will communicate with members and various sectors in society. Now we have an open mind. We will listen to various opinions. About electoral matters, regarding the 2015 District Council election, it will take place at the end of next year. And according to the relevant laws, the EAC within this year will have to put forth a recommendation to the Executive Council in relation to the delineation and the name of the constituencies. And so, according to the EXCO's decision, we will have to amend the laws, because in the next district council, there will be 431 seats. So there will be an increase of the number of seats. So the EAC will consult the general public as well as the LegCo on the demarcation of constituencies. And 2 months ago, in November last year, we consulted this panel on some technical amendments about the election laws. We expect that these amendments will take the form of a miscellaneous amendment bill, and later within this year, it will be tabled to LegCo for scrutiny. The next agenda item is about the online system for checking voter registration particulars. So we will explain the details to members and listen to your views. Things related to constitutional development include the promotion of basic law. In the past years, every year we set aside funds to organize promotion activities. This year, the focus of our promotion is knowledge and understanding of the basic law. Apart from that, this year we also emphasize related articles in the basic law related to constitutional development. So these will be promoted through different channels. And then concerning human rights, in particular children's rights, some time ago, we submitted the relevant report to the relevant committee in the UN. We also attended the hearing which took place in Geneva in November last year. At the CAP meeting, we listened to members and deputations' views. For 2013 to 14, we set aside additional resources for children's rights education, and we will produce television programs and APIs, and we have spent 2.15 million, a 57% increase from the original budget last year. In 2013, the number of schemes, beneficiary schemes, increased by 50%. 53,000 people participated in the activities. In 2014, the subsidy scheme will be focused on children's development. So we have received 89 applications, which broke the record. And within the first quarter, the subsidized or supplementary schemes will take place in the first quarter this year. And this year, we will give assistance to Families Council and also the Children's Rights Forum. And we will relay government's view. We will help to assess policies' impacts on families. And then in 2014, in the policy address, other policy bureaus and departments will promote well-being of children, especially those children who are disadvantaged. To facilitate members' understanding, highlights of these measures are set out in the annex. So I guess other bureaus and departments will also explain the measures in different panel meetings. The 2014 policy address talked about helping new measures to help ethnic minorities. There are a series of measures, for example, enhancing education, employment, and social outreach. Additional resources will be there to put ethnic minorities, especially the young people and the new arrivals. So we will help them integrate into society. The relevant measures, again, are set out in the annex. The relevant bureaus and departments will explain things to the relevant panel in due course. Through enhancing publicity and public education, we will facilitate and promote ethnic equality. We will do school outreach programs so that people will understand the customs and habits of different races. EOC will set up ethnic minority task group to promote anti-discrimination and about sex discrimination and discrimination on sexual orientation. In June last year, we set up an elimination of discrimination group. So we give views on discrimination against people of minority sexual orientation. We talked about policies and measures, and the consultation group will do focus study. The studies have started already. It is expected that within this year they will be completed. The focused studies will be on the circumstances of discrimination, so that the group will have adequate information to make recommendations. We will continue to promote the message and public education and publicity in order to eliminate discrimination against people of minority sexual orientation. We hope to encourage the spirit of respect and bigger tolerance. So we have produced a new API on that. Concerning way forward on LRC's proposal on stalking, the LRC report on stalking involves expression of the press and also some basic rights. So this is very sensitive. Members of the public and the media are concerned about the relevant recommendations, especially on impacts on freedom of the press. We have taken reference from the overseas jurisdictions, and last month on the consultants' findings and recommended formulation of the offense and exemptions, we consulted members already. We are carefully considering the findings and recommendations of the study as well as members' views expressed. We will consider all these to formulate an appropriate way forward. That's all. In my presentation, my colleagues and I will be happy to take your questions. 10 members have raised their hands to ask questions. The order is as follows: Wong Kok Heng, Chan Chi-chun, Lee Chak-yan, Fernando Zhang, Emily LAU, Sin Chung Kai, Chen Ka-lok, Albert Ho, Wong Pik-wan, Sid Ho, Chiang Lai-wan. 5 minutes for each. Any other members? Ip Kwok Him, any other? Paul Jie? No? Okay, let's start. Wong Kwok Heng, Mr. Wong Kwok Heng. Thank you, Chairman. Through you, I would like to ask the Secretary about basic law promotion. Now, based on what you said just now and the paper, this is just general promotion. You have been doing that all the time. Now, concerning the CE election, there are different views in society. There are quite a lot of arguments. Now, you have started consultation. You will collect views all the way to early May. So, it seems that in relation to promotion of the basic law, this is the most important moment. About CE election and what kind of CE election is constitutional and legal, and how can we comply with the basic law requirements and also the NPCSC's decision. So far, I haven't seen any preparation on your part, and you haven't really given much explanation. In the coming few months, if the government only promotes the basic law according to your usual old way, then will it depart from our discussion about constitutional development? Now it is already late January. Very soon we will have the Chinese New Year. But so far I haven't seen any steps from you to say clearly how can the CE election be compliant with the Constitution and the laws. So are you lagging behind in your work? Some time ago, you did a publicity campaign which was outstanding. So from now on, shouldn't you be focusing on how to make sure that the election is compliant with the Constitution and the laws, so that discussion in society will be more focused. And then members of the public will know where the yardstick lies. If there isn't any yardstick for everybody to see clearly how to measure what is right and what is wrong, then in the future, when you gather views, the views will be very fragmented and not focused. So, Secretary, can you answer my question, Mr. Tam? Okay, I will take this question in 3 parts. If there is time, Permanent Secretary can supplement. First, in the consultation document on constitutional reform and on the relevant websites, the information and papers are all uploaded there for your reference, for everybody's reference. That's point number 1. The CS4A chairs a Basic Law Steering Committee, and recently, in the meetings of that committee, the CS4A and members agreed that in the coming few months, we will start a basic law promotion. This year, on basic law and constitutional development, we will do some promotion. Basically, there will be 2 levels. On the first level, things will be more in-depth and professional. So seminars or forums may be organized. And the second level will be more for the mass.
去到我哋全港18區嘅層面嚟到去舉辦。
Will organize activities in formats and contents that are easily grasped by the public. So once we've made the arrangements, we'll explain to the LegCo. As for the third aspect, in terms of consultation on the basic law, particularly on the 2 electoral methods, again, we're seeking advice from the DOJ. The S4J may like to introduce legal basis and related contents to members of the public. And we may make use of the media to use easier methods to disseminate the information. So we are doing these at the moment and we'll implement them shortly. Permanent Secretary, let me briefly supplement. Our promotional activities in the past are divided into 2 levels. At the level of the general public, by collaborating with district organizations, we had subvented schemes to deepen the general knowledge on the basic law. Then in the professional sectors, we'll have thematic talks for professionals and those who are particularly interested in the basic law so that we can conduct in-depth studies. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. That's enough. Many members would like to ask questions. You can give us another paper. Mr. Chen Chi-cheng, concerning basic law, the government should save its efforts because the basic law is up to anybody's interpretation. What about civic nomination? Nobody can answer our questions. Is it that with this 5-step approach, our questions can be answered? No. In paragraph 198 of the policy address, most are old stuff. This is only repeating what has been said but has not been done or still being done. He's only rewriting past contents. As for sex minorities, in the last policy address, consultation was mentioned. This time, nothing is mentioned. The government did something, but why is it that very trivial matters have been included in the policy address, but for these sex minorities, they're not mentioned? Sex discrimination goes to the DOJ, and then ethnic minorities to the Security Bureau, but nothing for the SEMA. Well, publicity was mentioned. Yes, the API was the strongest. Taiwan told us that we're very able in this moment because not even Taiwan had an API on sex minorities. So please upload this on your website. And then concerning this advisory group on sexual minorities, of which I'm also a member, nothing really came forth. And then there are 3 aspects in the Secretary's paper about sex discrimination. Well, I'm most happy to see that more resources would be given to that end, but by how much? By how much and how effective that would be? Secretary, please give us more details. And then as regards the code of practice on employment, is really not very useful. I just received a case in which some Protestant organizations would like their employees to sign declarations to the effect that they would not be engaged in homosexual activities and the like. Just look at the code. You cannot just ask the respective organizations to implement the code. Why is it that the policy address does not mention this? Is it that the CE does not mention this, or is too shameful to mention that? Secretary, I think Mr. Chen Chi-chun had quite some time to have exchanges with us. As for the W case, the DOJ had a working group to take follow-up action. My bureau also participated in that. The Security Bureau has to proceed with legislative amendments, and there are also other discrimination issues. So our bureau also participates in that. As for the code of practice on employment, not long ago, I personally wrote to many trade associations, chambers of commerce, and organizations asking them to send us a reply. And they told us they're very willing to promote equality of sex. As for the advisory group chaired by Professor Chung Yu-ching, Mr. Chen Chi-chun and a few others participated in the group. We've actually commissioned a consultant to conduct a study on discrimination sexual minorities experienced in Hong Kong and forms of discrimination. The advisory group chairman will be arranged to, together with this bureau, discuss work progress and work directions with LegCo members. Through this advisory group, we'd like to eliminate discrimination to a certain extent and to lay a foundation for our future work. As for resources and promotion, I wonder whether the Permanent Secretary has anything to add. Maybe we can supplement when we discuss the budget. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask the government whether there is a new policy that in terms of governance, study is equivalent to implementation. If so, it's really very poor. For all affairs, for promulgation of policies, you tell us the studies are equivalent to implementation, and we're very surprised. We're surprised that an LegCo member, Mrs. Fanny Law, said that. The CE office should look into this. So if the CE is to conduct studies only, he is not honoring his promise. And what about this offsetting issue? And what about overall governance and explanation on the policy address? There are a lot of problems. At one time, the government did it very well. That is, there were explanations about the government's work in the past year. I wonder whether Ms. Tam remembers that. I think you were also a part of that exercise, and that was in the era of Tung Chee-hwa. That was implemented for a while and later was dropped. Oh, you told me it's in the time of Chris Patten. Will that system be revived? Members of the public would like to know the progress of government policies. Don't tell us that studies are equivalent to implementation. And concerning the minorities, services have not been enough for them. For housing matters, nobody answered our questions. For social welfare, nobody answered their questions. Will you conduct a comprehensive review on racial equality and harmonious or harmony policies? Would you assess all government departments and all policies, whether or not there is racial equality and racial harmony? Then we'd not have to discuss each and every case with you. We would like to have a genuine equality policy. Bureau Director, of course, I'm not in a position to answer all questions about the whole policy address. But to answer your question, in our Bureau, certain studies had produced fruits, just like the law on stalking. LegCo members told us that they still had some worries, so we're still tidying up the remaining issues of the report. As for the minorities, I think I can go back and discuss with the Equal Opportunities Commission to see whether there are ways and means to carry out studies and assessment in accordance with what Mr. Lee said. I believe this time the policy address has touched upon this more, and different bureaus and departments had implemented equality measures on minorities in terms of schooling, employment, and social integration. And those measures have been helpful. So I'll follow up this with the relevant authorities to see what can be done. As regards the progress of the work under the policy agendas, that's in the time of Chris Patten. After the handover, that had not been done. As I said, I'm not in a position to give a yes or no answer to Mr. Lee's question on the overall policy address. And today we have focused our policy agenda on what members raised last year to facilitate members' reference. Well, yes, we know that a lot of policies are underway, but we would like to know the progress. This year you should revive that system to clearly explain the progress of each and every policy. And have you observed your own timetable? We would like to know all these clearly. So the system should be revived as soon as possible. Well, Bureau Director, you already said that you're not in a position to answer certain questions. But please relay our message to the authorities, to the government, and give us a reply on whether or not this system of reporting progress would be revived. As for racial equality, don't pass the buck to the EOC. I'm asking whether the government will do this. I'm not asking whether the EOC will do it. All right, Secretary, you understand the remarks. Next, Dr. Fernando Chang. Mr. Chairman, concerning children's rights, on the 18th of November last year, this panel vetted the government's second report to the UN on the ICCPR. Members were almost unanimous in asking the administration to set up a Children's Council or Children Affairs Council so as to discuss how public resources and policies are protecting our children. And then on the 20th of November, we had the International Year of the Child, and my motion was carried in this panel. There's no response at all in the policy address. The government continues to tell us that this forum on this Children's Rights Forum and the Family Council would be able to strengthen the links. The Children's Rights Forum just finished last week. The participating organizations were very angry because they discovered that the system was useless and ineffective. These organizations were notified of these forums carried out 3 times a year, and very often the forums were launched on days when children had to go to school. And most individuals, organizations that are interested and concerned did not have the opportunity to participate. And last week, just 10 odd people participated in the forum. The chairman, Professor Daniel Sheck, is my friend. He also told me that the Family Council could not deal with children affairs. So for so many years, it has been proved that this mechanism is not successful. So how are you going to base your policies on issues that benefit children? Take, for example, the low-income households allowance. Under what circumstances did you consult the children and consider the policies from their viewpoint? And to what extent have you been promoting children policies? Mr. Tam, concerning the convention, the Undersecretary participated in the forum I'll defer to him for the arrangements. Undersecretary, concerning the conference on the convention, I participated in the forum, and of course the report was submitted to members.
We discussed that in the panel. I agree with Dr. Fernando Zhang that children's rights issues in Hong Kong should be dealt with such that the SARG should treat this with top priority. Just now, member referred to the low-income allowance, which is one of the highlights. Now, actually, in all policy bureaus, we take into consideration children's rights. We would like to know what children need most in each area. So the new policy is being discussed by various bureaus in order for it to be implemented. And Dr. Zhang also agrees that this policy area involves various bureaus. So if you want a super organization for discussion mainly, now in the Family Council, there's discussion about children's rights. Families as overall units take care of children. In the convention, families' role to take care of children's needs is being stated. So it is not true to say that the Family Council is useless. Then when it comes to the Children's Rights Forum, it is operated under our bureau. Dr. Zhang talked about timing arrangements and procedural arrangements. I do think that there can be some improvement measures. In the future, we hope to enhance its work. I hope to see more views from Dr. Zhang. Next, Ms. Emily LAU. Thank you, Chairman. Part 9 of the policy address is on constitution and administration. Last year and this year, a relationship between the executive and legislature was not mentioned. The former CEs made some mention of that, but this year, this point is not mentioned at all. So, Secretary, are you going to announce that there is the certified death of the relationship between the executive and legislature? About district administration, all along mention has been made about giving more power to the district councils. Mr. Michael Sun said that the 2 municipal councils had already completed their historical missions. And now more rights will be given to the district officers. And in Sham Shui Po and Yuen Long, the district officers will be the chairman of the DMCC. So they will have decision-making power to handle some district management and environmental hygiene issues. And what will the district councils do? They will give views on priority of work. So I think this is really sad. How can you nurture political talents for Hong Kong? How can you empower the district councils? I'm not asking you to empower the district officers. So what should be done, Secretary? Secretary? Thank you, Ms. Lau, for the question. Oh, that's not about him, really. Embarrassingly, district officers' work is within the purview of the HAB, and in the policy agenda, it is stated that the 2 districts will be pilot points, and there will be a DMC mode mechanism to solve district matters. The district officers will be given more power. I took part in that discussion. My view is that this is worth trying because in the past, some obstacles and problems encountered in districts need cross-departmental cooperation, and the district officers can play a bigger role in this area. Of course, there's a need for cooperation with other departments. So I think it is quite appropriate to make this arrangement. About political talents, in the policy agenda for the HAB, concerning resource support for district councillors, there's a new arrangement. So I hope that by doing this, members of the districts who are willing to serve the public will be able to have more support resources. And then about relationship between the executive and the legislature, well, that is under the CS4A. But on behalf of the SARG, I can say that we attach importance to the relationship between the executive and the legislature. The CS4A, after the formation of this LegCo, has been communicating closely with members and through the chairman and vice chairman of the HC with the CS4A. Concerns of LegCo are being raised. CS4A is very willing to listen to your views. So I believe you can continue to make use of this channel to improve relationship between the executive and the legislature. We are being very active and positive in this area. Chairman, if the administration communicates with all members on all policies, unlike what you have done on constitutional development, where you should communicate with all members from all political parties on all areas. Well, if you, what kind of mentality is that? If you think that by paying a few thousand more per month, then you can nurture political talents, and in fact you adopted a fragmented approach because you are saying that district council matters are under the HAB. Yes, you offer more money to hire people, that's good, but you have to offer more responsibilities to train a person. Why isn't that being done? Secretary, I understand that in those 2 districts, the relevant district officers have to work closely with the district councillors. And in Yuen Long and Sham Shui Po, there are priorities of work and also solutions and so on, and there is close cooperation between the district officer and the district councillors. Through the district officers, the relevant departments can be coordinated to more effectively solve problems in the district and to meet district councillors' needs. That's my understanding. Mr. Chan Ka-lok, Chairman, in the past few months, we focused a lot on constitutional reform. So my questions cannot depart from this area. Just now, colleagues said that Hong Kong public should understand more about the basic law. Well, when the basic law is often reinterpreted, how can we have better understanding? Sometimes, very often, Beijing scholars will talk about elite politics or corporate votes and so on. So how can we have so much time to interpret the basic law in the minds of these big scholars and experts? My question for the Secretary is this. During the consultation on constitutional development, do you plan to do an opinion poll? Every time in the past, the government commissioned some organizations to conduct opinion polls. So what is your plan? Which organizations will you commission? Are you going to hire some think tanks? How much resources will you spend? When you set the questions for these opinion polls, well, even though there is strong voice in support of public nomination, even though you said you will be willing to listen to views, at this stage you are not brave enough to ask members of the public some questions about public nomination. So you only pay lip service to this issue. When it comes to opinion poll, you will just neglect this element, and you will just neglect people's wish. So do you have plans to spend what amount of resources, which organizations will you commission, what questions will be asked, and so on? Secretary, in the past constitutional reform work, I remember that academic organizations had been commissioned to conduct opinion poll. And the opinion poll content has been in the annex to the consultation paper for people to refer to. Now, since we do not have a specific proposal yet, so in the first round of consultation, we do not plan to carry out opinion poll. In the second round of consultation, if necessary, we'll consider whether we will adopt the well-established tendering procedure in the government to identify appropriate academic organizations to conduct opinion polls. If that is going to be our decision, the opinion poll report will be publicized for LegCo and the public to refer to. Chairman, this is not only about the first round of consultation. Well, it is not true to say that there are only a few more months to go unless you, Secretary, have only a few more months remaining in your term. And so, in other words, you don't know yet whether opinion polls will be done. So is it true that in the first round of consultation, you won't do any opinion poll? There is no such intention. And in the second round of consultation, only then will opinion polls be conducted. At that time, I think many members of the public will support public nomination and nomination by political parties. And if you commission universities to conduct opinion polls, they should be given the freedom to fix questions to reflect people's views. You should not set a direction or a proposal and ask the universities to fix questions accordingly. Secretary, Chairman, at this stage, first of all, I have noted Mr. Chan Ka-lok's views. At the moment, we do not have plans to conduct opinion polls in the first round of consultation. In the second round, if we are to do it, we will take reference from members' views. Based on past experience, sometimes there may not be only one option. In the past consultation, sometimes there may be some elements offering options to consult the public. So at that time, we will conduct opinion polls as appropriate so that we will understand public views about various options so that they will facilitate our preparation of the bill. As I said, we will adopt the well-established, very transparent tendering procedure. After that, the poll report will be made public to members of the public and LegCo. Chairman, in university, we often see these reports, and university's credibility is being taken advantage of, so they cannot ask certain questions. So please do not take advantage of academic freedom and the transparency of universities. Chairman, 1 month has passed already concerning the constitutional development consultation. And I guess you have already collected some views. As you can expect, there will be strong differences in the views. There will be voices striving for real universal suffrage, and the conservatives will use different ways to create some uncompetitive and faked election. After gathering views, the government will consolidate and compile all the views, and conclusion will be drawn. I don't know how you are going to draw conclusions. Will the CE form his own personal position and viewpoints? We don't know. But all along, the ICCPR is still applicable in Hong Kong. Talking about Article 25, well, even though we have got direct election, it still won't apply. But then the Committee of Human Rights is of the view that that article should be applicable. But then the Hong Kong government doesn't accept the UN Human Rights Committee's interpretation in submitting a report. About constitutional reform, the government has no view. The central government doesn't know what will happen in the future, but many people are worried. Many people lack trust. Hong Kong people want universal suffrage, not only one person, one vote. Nomination should be open. And the nomination process should be fair, so that those regarded as members of the objection party can also take part. This is going to be the point leading to the biggest conflict and confrontation. So on Article 25, do you agree that our reservation should be eliminated? So at least for 2017 CE election, we should admit that Article 25 will apply so that we can be in line with international standards and we can pass the test of the UN Human Rights Committee. Apart from one man, one vote, nomination should not be restricted in an unreasonable manner. If you don't accept Article 25, then in other words, you don't accept our requirement of unrestricted nomination. So the central government is not brave enough to say that our restriction won't be unreasonable. Secretary, Chairman, thank you. My view is this.
Section or Article 25 of the ICCPR, we had some reservation under that article. Of course, the elections related to the LegCo and the ExCo were also relevant. That's why we have this saving clause, because we did not have universal suffrage yet for those two councils. Of course, now we're talking about universal suffrage for the CA election in 2017. We said we would strictly adhere to the basic law. At the same time, we basically agree with Article 25 of the Convention. That is, the rights to stand for election, the rights to be elected, the voting rights, etc., should not be unreasonably restricted. The S4J and I, on various occasions, made similar comments on the fundamental principles under Article 25. The challenge now is how to put those fundamental principles in our consultation exercise and in the specific options in the next stage. That is to take care of those fundamental principles. In actual fact, for these fundamental principles, in the basic law that has already been made clear, for example, in Article 45 of the BL, and also for the NPCSC decision, is also mentioned that one person, one vote would be ultimately adopted for the election of the CE. Can I ask this then? Do you agree that for the system to be established for 2017, the fundamental principles and spirit under Article 25 should be adhered to? That is, there shouldn't be any unreasonable restriction to the nomination rights. And we're subject to vetting by the UN committee. Secretary, of course, the foundation is in the basic law, and Article 39 of the BL also mentions the relevant conventions which are to be implemented through the laws of Hong Kong. In accordance with the basis of the basic law, I believe the specific options will take into consideration the principles in Article 25 as mentioned by Mr. Albert Ho. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I'm asking a technical question. In paragraph 12 of your paper, you mention this online voter information inquiry system, which is to be implemented. Well, we're going on to that on the next agenda item, which is dedicated to that issue. All right, I'll ask then. Dr. Helena Wong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask about sexual harassment under the Sex Discrimination Ordinance, which is not mentioned in this year's policy address. At previous panel meetings, we were told that measures would be implemented within this year. So can I have some elaboration on sexual harassment? Under Secretary, I can confirm that point. After discussing the matter with members, we had come up with a direction for this year, and a proposal will be introduced into this council within this year. It will be on schedule. And what about paragraph 191 of the policy address that is about civil service welfare? It said that there will be a new families clinic and dental services will be enhanced. Well, this is not in this is not for the panel, but for the public services panel. Well, I'll also benefit, but that's not under my ambit. Well, technically, I'm a retired civil servant. Can we defer to the Welfare Services Panel? This was discussed this morning already, but you're not there. All right. Then I'll pursue the 5-step process. Consultation will last till the 3rd of May, and then you will trigger or kick off the 5-step process. Can you tell us clearly the timetable for each and every step, and when will you come back to report on the whole constitutional reform exercise? Secretary, well, I can give you a general picture, but Dr. Wong and other members should understand that this is not final. Stage 2 or step 2 will depend on views collected for first step. Upon completing the first step on the 3rd of May, we'll collate and compile a report. Given our past experience, that will take about 2 months. Then we'll submit a consultation report to the CE. At the same time, the CE will submit the conclusion of first step to the NPCSC to request for a modification of the annex of the Basic Law. So that will take you up to July. Well, 2 months from the 3rd of May, according to my estimation. And then the NPCSC will have to convene meetings to consider the proposal. The NPCSC convene meetings once every 2 months. That will take us up to the beginning of the 3rd quarter. That is, by the end of August, they'll have a meeting. If they decide to make amendments, then we'll start step 2 consultation. We haven't decided on its duration, depending on the scope and complexity of the views received in step 1. And then I, on behalf of the SARG, will submit a proposal to the LegCo for scrutiny. Depending on the work of the LegCo, which has to set up a subcommittee or a bills committee to consider the proposal. Depending on members' views, with a 2/3 majority support and consent from the CE, another report will be given to the NPCSC to adopt the LegCo's decision to amend the annex of the Basic Law. Then we'll proceed to local legislation, including issues like the political affiliation of the CE and other details. Can the Undersecretary or the Secretary clarify on step 2 consultation? All right, the NPCSC completes step 2 in step 3, you'll come to LegCo, but before that, will you conduct a second round consultation? Yes, yes. Will the government then put forth an option on the 2016 and 2017 electoral methods? Given my past experience, there will be a specific option then. Well, maybe not one single option, but some options under one big theme. Depending on the consultation results, we'll submit a motion to the LegCo. Mr. To, I'll first say something about the API on the sexual minorities. The API does not touch upon the core issues. If you delete the presentations, you'll see that it's just like an API on youths. You see young people, young boys and girls in the API waving their hands in the country parks. And from the API, we do not see a person who has changed sex. So it's just the presenter asking people to accept those people. So please produce another API that touches upon the core issues. Now, I'd like to turn to the constitutional reform. Just recently, the chairman of the Bar Association asked society not to use legal issues as an excuse for political issues. Constitutional reform is a political issue, not just a legal issue. But then in the consultation document and from the recent remarks of officials, they're frequently setting restrictions from a legal point of view. And just recently, Professor Wang Zhanmin said that we have to uphold elite politics. He's just packaging the whole issue with another aspect. So, in this stage 1 consultation, civic nominations by political parties, etc., have been raised. If we're told that all these do not comply with the basic law, if even at this moment you're using such interpretations to resist such opinion, then what if the whole constitutional reform collapses? The CPG wants to use nomination to screen out certain candidates. So how are we going to handle this sort of scenario? And I also note that in recent times, the Bureau Director treated those commentators as young children. Oh, please be careful, don't break the glass. Oh, since you already have a bowl of rice, just eat it for the time being. The Bureau Director was treating the public as naughty children. So I'd like to ask the Bureau Director not to adopt that sort of attitude. If the general public opinion is different from the opinion of the CPG, as the bridge between the two parties, how are you going to handle the situation? Bureau Director, first of all, about the API, we'd like to, by way of some shooting techniques, bring out the issues concerned. And before that, we did some consultation. Of course, when we go back, we'll absorb and take on board the observations of Mr. To. Perhaps I can say this. In this consultation period, first of all, the SARG will not have any specific proposals or specific viewpoints about opinion raised by members of the public. That's why we're criticized by some people that we did not state our position under the Basic Law on proposals like civic nominations and nominations by political parties. But then we're in a consultation process. We're listening to all sorts of views. We try to see whether we can reduce disparities among different views. Well, sometimes what political parties or political commentators said may not necessarily represent the views of the SARG or the CPG. But very often reporters asked us these questions. When Ms. Sito asked, what if constitutional reform is to collapse? In Hong Kong, we'll try to see whether different views in Hong Kong can be brought together closer by certain ways and means, and we'll try to reflect different views of our society to the CPG, such that they'll understand more how the SARG handles different views received. So we'd like to serve as a mediator. Of course, the ultimate aim is to have universal suffrage. Dr. Chang Lai-wan. Mr. Chairman, the first issue that I'd like to raise is the pilot scheme on district officers. I see from the policy address that district officers are to coordinate the work of different bureaus and departments, and the role of the district officers should be enhanced. If that is to be the case, then what will be the situation under the framework? Coordination. But then the district officers are only district officers in the Home Affairs Bureau. Do they have enough powers to override or control other bureaus and departments?
For this pilot scheme, I think you should clarify the structure first. Otherwise, in the future, they're not able to exercise their power, or they're not able to discharge its responsibilities. Sometimes it is difficult to coordinate work among various departments and bureaus. Then I would like to turn to the point about ethnic minorities. This morning, at the Public Services panel, I heard that some government officials gave an answer when we asked the question whether ethnic minorities will have more chance to join the government to be civil servants. They said that if they register, if they apply, they won't be asked whether they are ethnic minorities. So they will sit the examination. If they fail the Chinese paper, then they won't be eligible, because no special assistance will be offered to them. Otherwise, it will be in breach of EOC laws. So I did a check right away. If we want to help these ethnic minorities, are we against the EOC laws? Actually not. What we are doing is actually equivalent to indirect racial discrimination. If we impose the same condition or requirement on some people or on an individual, even though that condition or requirement on the surface is not related to race, if people of a certain race will be difficult to satisfy that condition or requirement, or if they are in an unfavorable condition, that will constitute indirect racial discrimination. In other words, the standard of Chinese will show a shortfall from those Chinese applicants. So, Secretary, I hope you will help in this area. It is most important that there is justice or fairness for the police and correctional services department, they will make appropriate adjustments in relation to Chinese proficiency. However, there are many other departments in the government. For example, the Home Affairs Department, the Hospital Authority, and the welfare sector. Should there be more ethnic minorities working there? Even if you give them some preferential treatment in relation to language capability, that will not be in breach of the EOC laws. Secretary, Chairman, I would like to comment on the district officer's point. I'm sure later on there will be some more elaboration. But then in the 2 pilot schemes, if district officers come across operational difficulties, if there are problems that can't be solved in terms of coordination with other departments, or the department's priorities may conflict with the district officer's work, then we have a mechanism. We can quickly report to the CS4A. There is a high-level coordination mechanism. The Home Affairs Bureau can also give more explanation at appropriate forum. Mr. Lau Kwang-wah, Chairman, we have actually increased more policies in relation to ethnic minorities. We have given various departments guidelines on how to promote equality among people of different races. Right. Next, Mr. Ip Kok Him. Members of the public would like to see one man, one vote election for CE election in 2017. I believe this is something that all of us would like to see. The consultation work has started for 1 month or so. In the process, there is a big issue, and that is whether the constitutional reform should be in line with the basic law. Based on what I have heard from members of the public, they do expect that we should very quickly narrow our disagreements within the framework of basic law. But there are other practical issues. Members today have been raising a lot of doubts about, for example, civic nomination. At this stage, the government would like to listen more to different views. So I think when necessary, the government should come up with a clear position whether this is in line with the basic law. Today, you won't make any comment, I'm sure. During a consultation session, some participants asked the secretary this question, and they yelled and shouted and scolded the government. At what stage will you give a response to people's views or questions asked? Well, in Article 45, we are told that the nomination committee should have broad representation. And so my view is that civic nomination is not in line with basic law. And then about the timetable, I want to ask a core question. When will you present options? When will you present a clear option to LegCo? What is your target? Concerning the 2015 District Council election, about legislation, I think apart from district demarcation, there should be other things. Recently, there is a case in process. I won't refer to the details, but it involves the electoral laws, and it is a criminal prosecution. District councillors have worries about that, because if things are so complicated, we are very worried that if we omit anything in making declaration and so on. Secretary, On civic nomination, thank you, Mr. Ip, for your understanding that we won't state our position today. When I answered Ms. Helena Wong's question just now, depending on the length of the second stage, perhaps at the end of Q4 this year or in early Q1 next year, we hope to complete the second stage consultation so that we can present an option or a proposal to LegCo. But this is just a preliminary understanding. For the 2015 District Council election and the relevant laws, we have completed the work on the increase of seats. In relation to demarcation of constituencies, I reported on that as well. We're going to present a miscellaneous amendment bill on other technical amendments, and that will cover the related electoral laws. Mr. Ip, there are also offences or penalties in the PCICB. If you have some views, then I hope that you will let us know as soon as possible. Based on members' views, we'll see whether we'll be in time to incorporate those early next year, because there are common points in the prevention of corruption law. So we welcome your views. Secretary, about giving direct response to specific questions, do you mean that within these 4 months you won't give a response? You will only give a response at the final end? Chairman, I'm just saying today I won't give a response. But my question is, when will you give a response? To be serious, on this item, every week in our society, different people come up with different ideas. And there are different comments on different ideas. So we hope that we can benefit from more of these expressions of views before we come up with our own position, because, as I said, we are open-minded and we understand that there are really different opinions and views about this in society. Next, Mr. Paul Zhe, I have 2 questions. Para 188 of the policy address is about district administration. In principle, the direction is good because very often district councils play the role of pressing on the brake instead of playing more positive role. So I guess it is good to offer them more positive responsibilities. So how did you choose Sham Shui Po and Yuen Long? Is it true that there are some insiders there? I want to know the objective conditions. You said that there will be more resources and manpower made available. How much more? Number 3. You want to explore how this can be further implemented. In the past, the municipal councils did a lot of such work. What do we need to explore more about? My second set of questions are as follows. Now the administration has hard time about constitutional reform. Every time the Bureau said some resources will be set aside to promote the basic law. I criticized many times that the government only produced APIs and publicity on the contents of each article, but then there is no in-depth ways to help members of the public to have better understanding of the basic law. So very often the government said they are in line with the basic law, but at the Court of Final Appeal, the government lost in a number of cases. So how can that happen? Can more resources be allocated to have some organization or an advisory body comprising professional or experienced lawyers and barristers to examine some issues, so that we don't need to interpret the basic law when we lose a case? For instance, formula milk 114 115. What are the reasons behind? What's the government position? And about the special stamp duty, is that against Cat 115, Article 115? Or is that against the issue of private property rights and free economy. Then about the case recently, at the beginning, the court looked at Article 25.5 about equality, but later on, Article 36 was involved, and so eventually the government lost. So can you do more preparation work so that people understand what kind of constitutional document the Basic Law is? It is a framework document. So there must be a lot of embellishments and explanations on each policy, what kind of issues should be given attention to, and what are the reasons behind the government's laws in the past cases. Because a lot of resources have been wasted. So can you do more preparation work in advance? We may adopt the LRC approach in areas of disputes or in areas of potential disputes. Forward-looking studies can be done so that members of the public can understand the Basic Law in greater detail. Secretary, Para 188 of the policy address talks about district administration. I don't want to answer further questions on behalf of the Secretary for Home Affairs. I have taken part in internal discussion. I understand why those two districts were chosen, but I think the SHA should be the one to answer the question. About constitutional reform, first of all, there is general promotion. Every year, we set aside resources for that. And in the past, we did quite a lot of general publicity and television publicity. Now, we are thinking of more in-depth, specific, professional seminars and symposiums. We are planning for those. Mr. Jie, you talked about policy making and law making, whether that's in line with the Basic Law. Can the government do more? In the policy formulation process, it is important to be in line with the Basic Law.
For all policies, we have to assess whether or not they comply with the Basic Law. The gatekeeper is the lawyers in the Basic Law unit of the DOJ. That's about gatekeeping. So we rely on our DOJ colleagues for gatekeeping. Mr. Wong Yok Man, well, Mr. Chairman, if you don't have the correct name, you cannot proceed smoothly. Last time, for the consultation document, I already pointed out that the Chinese version, Bo Kok, should not use Bo step, but Bo in Bo Fan in Chinese. But still, the administration refused to make a change. Even for Mrs. Carrie Lam, through the LegCo president, I told her that it shouldn't be this bold for a step, but still the government was stubborn. This proves that all our officials should go down to hell. This is a kind of slavery consultation. You're waiting for the instruction of the Communist Party of the CPG. You're wasting our time. You're just doing something routine. You don't want to change. Without civic nomination, we cannot have universal suffrage. We must have referendum. Otherwise, we'll definitely have Occupy Central. I think they're being wishy-washy in their attitude. They are just conducting the routine. The character Bo here is definitely incorrect. When I was at university, I taught a subject on the correctness in media reporting. I said something about mistakes, objective mistakes and subjective mistakes, and you made both. For objective mistakes, Lau Kong Wa is Lau Kong Wa. You cannot put it as Lau Tak Wa. These are facts. Time and names are objective. You cannot argue. These are objective mistakes. So you still argue on objective mistakes. Subjective mistakes cover touching up, lopsided reports, etc., etc. For example, those in One Way Pao and Apple Daily. and you made both mistakes. So that's completely meaningless. You don't want to change just one character, Chinese character. And then you mentioned the gradual approach. Your remarks have not been constructive. You sit here wasting your time and life. You sit here listening to my scolding of your box, and you cannot rebut. Mr. Ip Kok Him asked you to respond. How can you respond? 90-odd people made 90-odd remarks. How can you respond? And the government has an established position, that is to act in accordance with Beijing. You are now waiting for a so-called consensus for the verification of the NPCSC, and then you will trigger the legislative process, that is the voting process in LegCo. You do a lot of preparation, but in fact you only need to convince several members in LegCo, maybe 5 of them. You can get a 2/3 majority. It's just like last time. The whole political party was betrayed, and then we got the so-called constitutional reform. So you only need to successfully lobby, say, 5 members or a few members. So you're wasting our time. We're just here to scold you. Just now, Dr. Chang Lai-wan asked me to scold you. Well, you pointed your finger at me, asking me to scold them. Well, Mr. Chairman, this consultation exercise is a waste of time. All right, don't waste your time then. Oh, I'm not wasting my time because every word of mine is meaningful and valuable. Dr. Lam Tai Fai, well, if you ask me whether Mr. Wong Yok Man is correct all the time, well, he's not correct all the time, but he is not always incorrect. Well, the EQ of Mr. Tam, the secretary, is really very high. He smiled when he was scolded. He shouldn't be like that. He should rebut when the scolding remarks were not correct. Mr. Chairman, can you stop such interruption? Don't affect my speaking sentiments. Oh, no, you won't be affected. Your IQ, EQ are high. Well, we got this 3-member task force on constitutional reform. I have high expectations of them. This task force is really very competent. Mrs. Carrie Lam, Mr. Raymond Tam, and Mr. Rimsky-Yoon. With these 3 members, the chance of success has become much higher. I think the CE knows it. But up to this moment, over a month has elapsed. My view of the three of you has changed. Our success and failure depend on you. You always say that you will do consultation, receive broad views from the public, blah, blah, blah. But then, what about elimination? What about screening out? What about civic nominations, etc., etc.? On various occasions, I said, your attitude has been very vague. You did not respond. First, at the beginning, I thought you were cautious and prudent. But now, I think you're just posing a posture only. You're too vague in your attitude. You always mention the basic law. Officials should be familiar with the basic law. Well, I have much lower educational qualifications than you. Still, I am familiar with that. I understand Article 45 of the basic law. Civic nomination is not been mentioned. You said you would like to have larger consensus and less disparities. Well, if you fail, don't put the blame on us, saying that we do not give you a 2/3 majority. Failure is caused by you. Well, black is black, white is white. Sometimes there are no gray areas. So sometimes you need to tell people that this is correct, that is incorrect. Don't let people have unrealistic imagination. Otherwise, society will be much more divided. There will be more disputes. I don't know why you're adopting this attitude. Are you saving your strengths to the final stage? Or like Lam Tai Fai, or like Wang Yukman said, you're waiting for instructions from the CPG. Will occupy central, throwing of gas bombs, etc., etc. All these represent violence. You have to stop them. You don't need the president to assist you to scold them directly. If I were you, I would directly point out their mistakes. Otherwise, rationality will become irrationality, and there will be even bigger differences in opinion. Originally, Lau Kong-wah was very eloquent. We had been colleagues. He has very quick thoughts. He had been working at the district level. He had been nurtured by the party. I telephoned him asking him why he did not state his position on civic nomination. He said that he would like to forge consensus and listen to more views. Well, the Chinese New Year is coming. We would like to have a happy year. We don't want to have this in our mind forever. Can you state your position before the Chinese New Year on civic nomination? Is that against the basic law, or would you continue to adopt a vague attitude such that everybody is still very unhappy during the Chinese New Year? Well, but if he states his position, some people will be unhappy. Secretary? Well, Mr. Chairman, be it civic nomination or a couple of other issues, there are different suggestions in society. Even the expression civic nomination has a broad coverage in content. You cannot just rely on just a few words to tell whether or not is in compliance with the basic law. That's not appropriate. In recent times, new options have been proposed. Prima facie, they may comply with the basic law and may be able to take on board certain opinion on democratic processes and other elements. I'm still discussing such issues with our friends, and I'm also thinking about these issues. So can you bear with us for longer? Be a bit more patient. We'll explain more clearly to you in due course. As for Dr. Lam Tai Fai, I'd also like to encourage you to comprehensively or more comprehensively present your views. Well, to me, you're also very eloquent. I think we should be pragmatic. You've presented pragmatic views, so please express them more. Well, so much for this item. We have to move on to the next item on the agenda. Online system for checking voter registration particulars. We have a different team of officials. So thank you, Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs. We're registering those members who would like to speak, so please raise your hands firmly. The clerk is recording the names.
好，呢個環節呢，有出席嘅呢，有政制及內地事務局首席助理秘書長鄭琪先生，就選舉事務處總選舉事務主任李柏康先生同埋副總嘅選舉事務主任沈南龍先生啊。咁就文件呢就有兩份，一份就政府俾，一份秘書處幫我哋準備嘅。咁我想請係咪阿鄭先生你講講嗰個文件嘅內容啊？即係而家係點樣改法？
好，主席，咁或者我簡單講一講，或者詳情我由李主任解釋啦。
Mr. Chairman, on the prolonged time for checking the provisional register, the PR, our office is actively exploring the feasibility of an online voter information inquiry system. Today, we are very happy to present to members the details of this inquiry system. I'll defer to the Chief Electoral Officer, the CEO, for the details. There will be a two-phase exercise. In the third quarter, we would like to launch the system such that voters can check their particulars online. And then secondly, in 2015, before the district council election, the same platform can be used by electors to check the polling stations and other particulars. I'll defer to Mr. Lee for other details. Mr. Chairman, according to the existing laws, a provisional register, an omissions list, and a final register had to be published for public perusal. And in the period during office hours, electors can check their particulars at district officers and our own officers. They can also check such particulars from the various registers. At the moment, electors can only do so during office hours, so it's quite inconvenient for immediate updating of particulars. Given the more common use of the Internet, we propose to start an online voter information inquiry system, OVIES, for electors to check their voter registration particulars, including their names, addresses, constituencies, functional constituencies, and subsectors and sectors. The purpose is to provide an extra, more convenient means for electors to check their own particulars. At the moment, the hotline as well as documentary systems will still be maintained. This is to enhance the transparency of the system. Under the new system, around the clock, electors can check their particulars. If they discover particulars becoming outdated or old, for example, they forgot to inform the REO their new address, they can use the online system to update the particulars so as to enhance the accuracy of the registers. Particularly during the publication of the PR, this online system will facilitate electors in updating their own particulars. They can also submit applications in time. And if an elector is struck off the list, a reminder will be issued to remind the electors to lodge any claim or application in order to revive the registration. Since a great deal of personal particulars are involved, we will emphasize a lot about protection of personal particulars.
Under the current design, there should be a double login arrangement for electors to look up the particulars. So you may refer to the login workflow chart. And based on the current design, the inquirer has to input the Hong Kong ID card number and either Chinese or English name. After that, in the register, if there are records, corresponding records, then that means there will be first-level verification. Otherwise, there will be a reminder for the elector to apply to be an elector. After that, there will be a pull-down menu for inquirers to choose and confirm part of the address. If the address is correct, the whole verification is completed. Then he can log into the system to check his own particulars. As explained in Para 8, when we designed this login system, we have taken into consideration other two options. For example, requiring the inquirer to use a digital certificate to verify his identity, or to require the inquirer to register beforehand with REO and to log in with an assigned password. We think that the current two-tier verification arrangement is more convenient, so that a suitable balance can be struck between protection and convenience. We have consulted the Office of the Data Privacy Officer, and then we have got his positive response. In the future, we will put in place enough security measures to make sure that this online system can operate safely. REO, EAC will also listen to the technology office of the government. There will be encryption of the system to avoid data leakage. And during system development process, we will hire independent company to do privacy assessment and IT security assessment to make sure that there is enough control and precaution measures. System development will take 6 months, and in July 2014, after the publication of the final register, this system will be in place. And then at that time, we will promote the new system. We will encourage electors to update their particulars. They should make application as soon as possible. Before the 2015 District Council election, Phase 2 service will be offered to offer information about polling so that the electoral work can be smoother. That's all in my presentation. Members are welcome to ask questions. 5 members have raised their hands to ask questions. The order is as follows: Emily LAU, Mok Nai Kwong, Wong Yuk Man, Sin Chung Kai, and Ip Kwok Him. Because of time constraints, there will be 3 minutes for each. Ms. Emily LAU. Thank you, Chairman. The Democratic Party will support this arrangement to convenience the public. Electors can refer to changes made to their particulars. At the same time, we can easily check whether any problems are caused by people. If we have to go to the REO, then there may be a lot of people hanging around. Is there any way to check whether anybody has made wrong submission or caused any problem? Chairman, if members of the public need to search the papers or information, they have to go to REO in person to do it. And members of the public will present their ID cards to register. They will also make a written undertaking saying that they will not abuse the information for non-electoral purpose. So the requirement is strict. Apart from this statutory process, we are offering a more convenient, a relaxed choice. In the past, on certain occasions, it is not convenient for electors to verify their particulars, so we would like to target at this first. In the future, can we open up the information more? This can be discussed. In 2012, when we amended the law, we allowed the REO in announcing the electors register. Another register based on alphabetical order of address was also proposed. But then there are other opinions saying that this register may have negative impact on electors' privacy. So in society, there are different views. On top of the statutory process, if there is a more lenient way to allow members of the public to check other people's registration data, well, we have to be careful. I won't rule out the possibility. If we successfully build the system, then we will have an online platform. In the future, the scope of use and the scope of it being shaped will be wide. So we can discuss further whether we can use the system to open up further to provide more information about the electors for public monitoring. Chairman, I hope the Secretary will remember. Well, it is important to make things convenient for monitoring. Yes, people may have different views, but I think this point you have to remember. You have to make things convenient for the public to monitor. Okay, thank you. Next, Mr. Mok Nai Kwong. REO said that this system will be launched in July. And it will take 6 months for system development. So you have already started tendering, right? So now you are presenting this proposal to us. To a certain extent, nothing can be changed because you have already asked the software developer to do the work. So is it true that nothing can be changed now? Can you give a quick response? I have other questions. Mr. Lee, Chairman, this is going to be done by our own people in the REO. Most of the services will be provided by us, so there will be flexibility in timing. We have just completed the preliminary design. We have also consulted the Office of the Commissioner on Data Privacy. Okay. Of course, we have to balance between convenience and people's privacy or possible abuse. But it is more relaxed than having to go to the REO in person with ID card. Well, if other people know our ID card name and address, well, people will worry. So it's not difficult to check on other people. So is this allowed? Is this something you want to encourage? Is this really allowed? In the process, should the person claim that he has got the consent of the person involved, or is it explicitly stated that it is not allowed? Mr. Lee, according to the law, when we publicize the final register or provisional register, there are two objectives. First, the electors can check their own registration, and number two, the public can monitor the whole system. Now we propose this system because we want to enhance our service so that electors can have a more convenient way to check on their own data in the registration. And if necessary, there can be timely updating. Chairman, I'm worried that it will be abused by other people. People will check on other people. People will do phishing. So they will check whether a person really lives at a certain address by means of this system. So can you strengthen the verification mechanism? Will you allow people to change electors' data or do other online registration? Chairman, I want to answer the first question first. In designing this system, we have thought of asking the elector to input his name and ID number only. In Hong Kong, there are many economic and community activities, and so many people possess the ID number and name of other people. So we would like to further protect data privacy. So we asked the inquirer to verify part of the registration data. We have taken reference from similar systems overseas. Based on overseas experience where they do not have ID number, but people are required to input names, dates of birth, and postal codes, and so on. So they have to verify their own information plus their address. So we have taken reference from overseas experience. The second question is, if the elector is aware that the current data are not up to date, well, electors can update online. They have to use the digital certificates. Otherwise, they can download a paper, sign it, and then fax it back to us. Then they can do it. So this is a one-stop service. Next, Mr. Wang Yukman. Thank you, Chairman. According to the proposal, the OVIES allows electors to check their own registration data. Members of the public can only do a search via the traditional channel. So this is to take into consideration personal data privacy concern. So I don't understand whether members just asked whether this system can be used to check on other people's data. You have consulted the data privacy commissioner. He won't object to the proposal, but there must be enough measures to ensure the safety of this platform. Para 7 states that the administration will do an independent data privacy impact assessment and IT security assessment. I hope that results of these assessments will be made available to us as soon as possible. Now I would like to discuss with you some technical issues. The identity of the elector must first be verified to initiate the system. You have considered various options and you think that C is more practical, convenient and user-friendly. And there's a two-tier verification system. But we are only talking about usual personal data like ID number, name, and part of the address. Very often, people will make known to other third parties all these data. So I think this system is not safe and sound enough. The Privacy Commissioner asked for enough measures to make sure that the platform is safe. So are these measures enough? Referring to para 5C, it is stated that if an elector knows that he is still not an elector, then the system will display a warning message to alert the elector and remind him to lodge a claim. So, for online system, is there still the 2-week restriction as in the traditional system? But then perhaps the deadline is passed already. If the system is to remind him to lodge a registration, then how meaningful is that? If the register is publicized and if electors can still change their particulars or apply to be electors, then how can the public raise objection or monitor the whole thing? Okay, let me supplement. For this online system, it will operate all year round. So in other words, there is no deadline. Yes, it will operate around the clock all year long. Let's say the 16th of May is the deadline, and if an elector finds no information online, then he can submit application on paper or online. And then on the 15th of June, we will publicize the provisional register, and then in the system, the information will be shown. If he can log in, if he realizes that he is not in the PR, or if he is in the omission list, then during this period, he can make a claim. So we haven't changed any deadline in the law. Next, Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Chairman, I think that there can be more than one method. Now, I find option C acceptable.
According to my knowledge, in your register, 10% have got email addresses, according to your record. That is, when they register as electors, they already provide you with their email addresses. And very often passwords are attached to an email account. Therefore, after verification, strictly speaking, that's even safer. That is, by logging in using a password. There are a lot of methods that are possible. By way of a password, more information should be made available to the public. In your record, you have the email addresses. At the time of an election, emails are also sent to candidates, or email addresses are passed on to the candidates for mailing electoral materials. So the email addresses on your record plus the passwords will be even safer than option C. And if you have option B, that is, you send an elector a password for him to log on, then a certain level of details can be provided. For example, Ms. Emily LAU asked a question about my address. Say, in my constituency, how many electors have registered themselves. I think you can study with your legal advisor as to whether or not this is possible. Well, a person may no longer be living in my constituency, but for many years is not struck off the register. So if I can have these particulars if I know of a person who is living in my constituency but is not on the register, etc., etc. As for option C, that is the option proposed by you, some more information can be provided. Say if my registration identity is verified, then I should be able to know how many people have registered as electors in my constituency. I am not asking for individual particulars, for example, my wife, my son, but I think I can know the number. I should be given the number. Say in my building, I know there are only 3 electors, but then there are 6 electors on the register. Then I will try to trace how come suddenly we get 3 more electors in the building. So, you should make good use of option B. You should make good use of the email addresses in your database. You can send the person an email for confirmation, and then you can give him a password. I think together with the Office of the Government Chief Information Officer, you can think of more methods. Mr. Lee, 3 remarks here. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Sin Chung Kai for his remarks. When we developed this system, we did consider using email addresses as part of the information in the dissemination of information. But still, only 10%, that is 400,000 electors, have email addresses. So if we have 2 systems, there may be confusion. However, I do admit that after the implementation of this online system, we can proceed to consider more email addresses. And very often, email addresses in our database are not the most updated ones. So we'd like electors to update their email addresses. In the past, when we sent materials to the candidates, we discovered that email addresses were very often not the most updated ones. Secondly, whether the particulars of other people could be provided. Now, this is something to do with privacy, so we have to think about this carefully. Mr. Sen asked whether more information could be shown. For example, how many people have registered as electors in a particular constituency. We can go back and think about that. Because if we are to announce the number of persons only, then we can talk to the Privacy Commissioner to see whether that can be done. If so, it will have a monitoring effect. We should finish at 4:30 p.m. 2 more members would like to ask questions. I'll conclude the meeting after the 2 of them have spoken. Mr. Ip got him. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Concerning this online voter information inquiry system, I welcome it. It was raised at past meetings that some electors, out of no reason, lost their eligibility to vote. And that was discovered only at the time of voting. So if there is a chance for electors to make inquiries, it will be appropriate. Yet I believe there should only be one system for verification of identity. There should just be one system. Because if security is not done well enough, personal particulars may be leaked. So I'm worried about that. Just now I heard that this would only be an inquiry system. Can you confirm that this is only an inquiry system? Particulars cannot be changed online. So if I'm an elector, can I just log onto the system and change my particulars? Just now I heard that this would not be possible. Can I have a confirmation? Secondly, for those electors who had lost their eligibility to vote out of no reason, Most of them were elders. Can you do that over the telephone? It's just like this online system. Can elders approach you over the phone? They are not familiar with the internet. They don't know how to do this online. Mr. Lee, Mr. Chairman, at present, this is meant to a relaxed system, so the system can be used for inquiry only, not for updating. There will be another online system for verification, which requires encryptions. We'll see how our services can be further improved. For electors, including elders, if they make a telephone call and are able to confirm their names and ID card numbers, basically we can answer their questions over the phone. Is that true? I don't think so. In the past, they couldn't do this over the phone. They can do so. The service has been in place for several years. We're very careful. As I said, in society, many people know the personal particulars of other people. So a number of questions will be asked to verify the identity of the caller before personal particulars are given. Yes, that's possible. I also tried it. Dr. Priscilla Leung, Mr. Chairman, the direction of facilitating electors is supported by me. At the moment, because of suspected vote rigging, do not encourage people to check their particulars casually and randomly. Some electors were actually deterred from casting their votes because of suspected vote rigging. Well, some Hong Kong people live on the mainland for a prolonged period of time. Have they kept their eligibility to vote? Well, sometimes they've forgotten to do certain things. Be it electors or candidates, very often your administrative negligence is in question. Some elders are forgetful. They don't have the money to hire lawyers. I mentioned this in the past. You often told them to resolve the matter legally, but they don't have money to hire lawyers, so they unknowingly fall into the legal trap. Well, administratively, you do not analyze the mentality of the person involved. Oh, you submit the form late, so that constitutes a criminal offense. You often said that these are technical issues, but you do not facilitate electors in voting. And some electors just don't know what to do. They are not clear about a lot of things. You always ask them to resolve the matters legally, but they don't have so much money to hire lawyers. So all these have to be handled in one go. Of course, when it comes to criminal offenses like corrupt and illegal practices, irregularities, and so forth, that's different. The information or personal particulars of elders are possessed by many parties, for example, banks, the Social Welfare Department. If an elder hands over his personal particulars to a person he trusts, then if personal particulars can be checked over the phone, that will be very risky, and will the elder himself have to bear the responsibility. And some people have suggested online voting. That's even more complicated. So you have to consider negligence. You have to differentiate between negligence and administrative negligence or personal negligence. Some are civil liabilities, some are criminal liabilities. You have to differentiate all these. Well, it is not within today's scope of discussion. Leave your remarks to another occasion. So meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, government representatives. Our next meeting will be held on the 17th of February at 2:30 p.m. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.